Quarantine, self-isolation. Who would have thought that this could have happened? It's been a drastic change to our way of living. In some cases good and some bad. But for many of us, it has just been a time of introspection, of self-reflection. I've had some of those days when I feel like, I'm like totally cracking up. But I also have had a chance to ask some of those deeper questions. Questions like who am I? What do I stand for? What is my purpose? Do I really even matter? Well, have you had any of those? I started to wonder if what I'm doing really matters at all. A few years back, I had received a shipment. It was 3 large boxes, and it was a drum set that I had ordered. And I was really excited to open the boxes and look at all the new shiny drums and the double-braced hardware that would hold the drums and the cymbals. Now, each box was marked with what it was: a snare drum, a bass drum, a cymbal stand. And then I came across this box, and it said, "Empty Box D." I stopped because I found that just to be so odd. Empty Box D. I looked at the box and I laughed and I was puzzled. Why would someone take time to print this on this box? This was just packing material. My daughter Molly started having seizures in middle school. It was so unexpected and ended up completely changing her life. You see, at the time, she was finally breaking into a friend group, and life was just beginning to really open up for her. Then she had this first seizure on the last day of school in middle school, and that changed everything. And that summer, she was just limited in what she could do, and we tried to figure out, what was going on. What was this? What were these seizures? So over the course of quite a few weeks, we finally were able to find out what was happening. She was diagnosed with epilepsy, and so we went on the journey of trying to figure out how to stop them. We found a medication that worked. Well, all the seizures did stop, and we thought life would return to normal. School started up again, and as Molly progressed through high school and college, she had an underlying fear that she was broken or at some sort of a disadvantage in some way. But she pressed on and she decided to go to film school and dreamed of making movies. During her time in college, she had become somewhat of an introvert with her classmates. She had struggled with the move to Santa Fe. But she did become close with a group of friends through her part-time work, and that became her support system as she was nearing the completion of her college. With 6 months left of school, Molly passed away unexpectedly, and it was devastating to all of us. We wondered how it could happen. Messages of sorrow, of regret, about a life cut short, that she didn't get to do what she had planned to do. Isn't that how some of us feel today? That we haven't got to do what we feel like we need to do? To live the life we were made to live? The Bible talks about how we are all part of the body, and we're all some representation of each part. Some of us are eyes, the mouth that speaks, the arms that do the work. It is as though these parts are the important parts that are really significant. Then again, it also talks about the other less important parts. And the tension arises if some part of the body, like the big toe, all of a sudden says, "Hey, can I be the head or the mouth?" Those are the important parts, and I feel like I should be important. Well, don't we often feel like that? That we should be doing something important. We get bombarded by people who give TED Talks and speeches, who are, flamboyant or gifted as speakers. Maybe they're just really loud and flashy people who, give pronouncements about how they're changing the world. You sometimes feel like a big toe. But the story about the body is that we can't live without all the parts of the body. Each serve a purpose, and without one, we are incomplete as a whole. We forget that sometimes. We forget the big toe is necessary and important to maintaining balance so we don't fall. As my family tried to wrap our heads around my daughter's death, I had to make a trip to her school, clean out her apartment. As we arrived in Santa Fe, Molly's friend contacted me and said, she wanted to come and visit with us that night at our hotel. We expected her and maybe another friend or two. Well, what happened was that our room was filled with 9 or 10 of her friends, and they came to share stories of my daughter. How my daughter was the glue to this group. She'd made it her mission to include everyone when they did things together, to not leave anyone behind, even if there was a rift between a couple of people. Her friends described a side of my daughter that I didn't know. She had spoken fondly of her friends at Santa Fe, but I didn't really know that Molly had become something much more to her friends in the midst of her struggles at school. As we sat and listened to these stories, I realized that she'd fulfilled an important part of who she was, and her life had mattered deeply to those who she was doing life with. As I arrived back in town after picking up her belongings, I'd been out on a walk, and it was then that I remembered that drum set I had been unpacking. This drum set with all of its shiny drums and hardware and the shiny cymbals and all that. I remember that day when I was opening that box, there was that lonely little box that puzzled me. The box that said, Empty Box D. You see, Empty Box D wasn't just a throwaway in this box of many boxes. Sometimes we think of ourselves as just waste, as just a waste of time, a box without a purpose. And this empty box wasn't just any empty box. It wasn't Empty Box A or B or C, it was Empty Box D. No, it was not the first of the empty boxes, so it really shouldn't have counted, should have been pretty much inconsequential. But that isn't the point. Empty Box D didn't exist to be first. It didn't exist to be the loud snare drum or the shiny cymbals. No, it was the packing material in a group of boxes. And the purpose was to be sure that none of the rest of the drums and the cymbals were damaged in the process of being shipped to whoever received it. To protect that which was valuable. If Empty Box D didn't exist, the drum set would arrive damaged or maybe even unplayable. It was in that moment, remembering about this box, that I thought about my daughter. She had thought of herself as less than and worried much about her young life about being something special. But as her friends reminded me, she protected her friends. She was the glue. She was the Empty Box D, fulfilling what she was made to be. She was like Gandalf from Lord of the Rings, standing on that bridge and, facing that big monster. And he turned and said, "You shall not pass." And now you may not realize it, but in serving your family and your close friends, you might be Empty Box D. You might be serving as the big toe in the family and the family that can't do anything without you. As you remain isolated, remember as you reflect that you might be something different than what you perceive as to be important. Something more subtle or hidden, but nonetheless very important. Maybe something as important as Empty Box D.